We're in Houston for the first game of our Week 2 Monday Night Football doubleheader, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trying to knock off the Houston Texans. Last time these teams met, the Strouds marched 75 yards in 40 seconds for a dramatic come-from-behind win. Can the Strouds sink the Buccaneers again, or will Baker and Bucky cook the Texans? We'll see in a simulation, but first we have to make our drink a Rum-a-Rita. Alright, two new teams for Sips and Simulations, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Houston Texans. Both of these teams have 4 primetime games this season, so I've been working hard putting together the drink lists for both of these teams. It's been pretty tricky since the Texans have a lot of overlap with the Cowboys, and Tampa Bay as a city doesn't really lend itself to drinks the way that other cities do. But thankfully, because they're the Buccaneers, they let me use the pirate cheat code, which basically means as long as a drink is vaguely naval and swashbuckling, I can just call it a pirate drink and then use it for the Buccaneers. So that is the perfect segue to your favorite pirate's favorite drink, rum.
Where's rum gone?
You heard correctly. Our representative for this week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is just straight up rum. A cop-out? Maybe. But also, I really don't think there's any drink that screams pirates more than rum, and I've been wanting an excuse to really sort of go down the rum rabbit hole, so I figured this is the perfect opportunity to sort of do a deep dive on rum as a spirit, what it is, how to use it, and all of its glorious different forms. So, in case you're brand new to spirits or drinking in general, what is rum? Rum is one of your big 5 base spirits: vodka, gin, tequila, rum, and whiskey. These are the things that you're usually building a drink around. So rum, the big thing about it is that it's made from fermented and distilled sugar cane, and as a result is generally going to be one of the sweetest of your sort of big 5 base spirits. All right, now there's countless different variations of rum, and the first major split is whether your rum is being made with sugarcane molasses or sugarcane juice. So if it's made with sugarcane molasses, it's going to be spelled R-U-M generally, and if you see something that's spelled R-H-U-M, that typically indicates that it's made using sugarcane juice instead of the molasses. So if you remember from our Brazil episode between the Chiefs and the Chargers, link in the top, last week, that was using cachaça, which is a Brazilian rum, and in this case, that's rum with an H, because this is made from fermented and distilled sugarcane juice. Generally speaking, these rums that are made with sugarcane juice are going to be grassier and funkier than their molasses-based cousins, but we'll get into more of the specific details between the flavors as we go on. Once you've chosen your sugarcane base, the 3 other major factors that set all of these apart are going to be aging, flavoring, and strength. All right, so starting with aging, right here you can see we have a Bacardi white rum and a Plantre 5-year rum, and immediately you can see the visual difference between these two. Now, one of the common misconceptions with your white rums is that these are completely unaged, that as soon as distillation is complete, they're simply slapped in a bottle and shipped off. While a distiller could do that, one of the major benefits of aging is that it reduces the harsh flavors and volatile compounds that get introduced during the distillation process. So most distillers will let their rum age somewhere between 1 to 5 years before then filtering it to remove any of the colors and any other harsh flavors that still remain, and then bottling it and shipping it off. The end result is a clear, slightly sweet spirit that perfectly blends and mixes into drinks, serving a similar sort of role in your cocktail tool belt to like a vodka. Something really there to get the proof of the drink up, but not one that's going to seek to impose too much of its own flavor on the drink. Now, in comparison, your aged rums, which are sometimes called dark rums, I'll get into why I hate that term later. You'll only hear me refer to them as aged rums. These are generally aged in oak barrels anywhere from 5 up to 20 years, really letting the flavors sort of mellow out and also letting the spirit leach some of those flavors and colors from the walls of the barrel, which results in this beautiful sort of caramel color that you probably typically associate with rum. The end result in terms of flavors will generally vary based on, which barrels are used, how long it's aged, and a whole host of other factors that go into that whole process. But generally speaking, the result is going to be a very rich, very mellow spirit with sort of your classic notes of baking spices, vanilla, caramel, all those sorts of things. These are great for sipping on, and indeed, aged rums are a great entry point if you have someone who wants to start drinking liquor neat and doesn't really know where to start. They're not used to doing that before because it is sort of so smooth and so mellow and sweet. These rums do also mix into cocktails great though, especially things that have a lot of other strong flavors where you really sort of want the strength and the unique body of these aged rums to stand up to all of them. All right, so far all of the rums I've shown have a base spirit strength of 80 proof or 40% ABV. However, that is not the case for all rums. You have a whole sort of basket of rums which are made stronger and are generally labeled as either Navy strength or overproof. So Navy strength as a term has a really interesting history with the British Navy, but nowadays if you see it on a rum, it generally just means that that rum is between 54 and 57% alcohol by volume. That does technically make it overproof, but generally speaking, if you see the term overproof on something, that means that it's above Navy strength. So some of the most common ones are 63% ABV and 75.5, which is also known as 151 rum, if you've ever heard of that. The overproof rum that I have right here from Plantaray is OFTD. This is 69%. Nice. These are sometimes used in cocktails for an extra kick, but generally what they're used as is basically like glorified lighter fluid, honestly, where they're used as floats on top of tiki drinks because these have enough alcohol content that they can actually ignite by being lit on fire, whereas if you tried to do that with a standard rum, there's too much water in it and you won't get that nice little flame that you get from an overproof rum. All right, so finally we get to flavored rums, which is really where this whole thing kind of goes off the rails. And anybody who's been waiting to hear me talk about spiced rum should listen up. So for one reason or another, sometimes the flavors that you want in your rum just aren't there when you've done the distillation and the aging. And that is where a flavored rum starts. So you've distilled your rum, you've aged it, and now you're going to impart some extra flavors into it, either naturally or artificially. So your most common flavored rum that generally most people think of when you say flavored rum is going to be a spiced rum. Basically, cinnamon, vanilla, nutmeg. But really the possibilities are essentially infinite when it comes to flavored rums. There's a rum distillery here in DC that does a green spiced rum, which is lemongrass, mint, green cardamom, and lime peels. Some other common rums that fall in the flavored rum category would be like a coconut rum or black rum, which is the reason that I hate things being called dark rum. Because when a recipe says dark rum, I don't know if it means this nice, mellow 5 to 10 year aged rum or this bad boy right here. So these dark rum or these black rums have been back sweetened typically with molasses to make a much sort of sweeter and again really heavy on those sort of baking spice type notes. So these are significantly sweeter and thicker, heavier than your aged rums. And so they're two completely different drinks as far as cocktails are concerned. Obviously, the utility of a flavored rum is going to depend on what the flavors in that rum are. I would say that black rum is one of the most common ones. This is often used in sort of maritime type drinks like a dark and stormy. And then spiced rum is also very common. That one's most frequently used to stay warm while you're watching your college football team lose in November. But they all have their role. All right, collegiate trauma aside, let's go meet our representative drink from Texas, the margarita. All right, so right off the bat, I want to make perfectly clear that the margarita was almost certainly not created in Texas and absolutely not created in Houston. There is a story about a Houston bartender, Robert Thompson, creating this drink in Houston in 1961. However, that's 25 years after the drink is first documented in Tijuana, about 20-ish years after a whole spate of other much more credible origin stories, and 8 years after a recipe for the drink was literally published in Esquire magazine. This man is a fraud. Despite this, however, it can't be argued that the margarita is basically the unofficial state drink of Texas, and as a result is a very fitting drink for the Texans. The margarita is a very simple drink, but as a result it has countless variants, and its ratios are being tweaked constantly. It's really just tequila, triple sec, and lime juice, but which tequila? Which triple sec? How much of all three of those? Are you adding any extra sweeteners or flavors to it? All of these things are things that you get to decide when you get to make your own margarita. So I personally do not have a go-to margarita recipe. I'm not going to get in arguments down in the comments with people over what is the correct margarita recipe. Is this valid? Is this not valid? But for the sake of consistency and just to have something to go off of, I'm going to use Dave Arnold's margarita recipe, which he describes in Liquid Intelligence, which is right up on screen now. But essentially he just adds a little bit of simple syrup to make it a bit sweeter and balance things out. The one deviation from his recipe that I'm going to be using going forwards is that I don't have Cointreau right now. I've got dry Curacao, so ours may be a little bit drier than his would be. All right, so this might be a bad idea, but the way I see it, I've got 5 rums in front of me right now, so I might as well just go down the line and try each of them and just see, will it Rum-a-Rita? So like I said, we are going to be using Dave Arnold's spec for this one. So that is going to be 2 ounces of our rum, and then 3/4 of an ounce of our triple sec. I do not have Cointreau, is what he calls for in his recipe. I do not have Cointreau, so we're going to be using dry Curacao, which I think will actually work out quite well because all of these rums are generally going to be a bit sweeter than the tequila that you would normally use in a margarita. 3/4 of an ounce of our lime juice, and then a little 1/4 ounce of simple syrup to balance it all out. So I'm just going to go down the line. We're going to make each one, taste each one. Some of these I think are going to be quite bad, but you know what? You guys deserve to see me suffer occasionally. All of the drinks so far in this series have been really good. I know part of the risk of me not tasting any of these drinks before I make them is that they might just be really fucking bad sometimes. But thankfully I've been pretty good at coming up with decent drinks so far. So we haven't had that. I can tell you right now, though, I'm not looking forward to the overproof Rum-a-Rita. I think that's going to be some pain in my future.
Foreshadowing is a literary.
But we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. So, starting off, we have our lovely little cachaça Rum-a-Rita. I can smell that cachaça already. It is so funky. So I think this one is going to be really good. I would not be surprised if this was my favorite of all of them. I think that sort of grassy funk of the cachaça will play really nicely with the lime and the orange. And there's not really, because it's a rum, agricole, it's a rum made with sugarcane juice instead of the molasses. There's not really the sort of baking spice notes that you get in other rums, which might sort of compete with what the margarita recipe is trying to do. I think this rum is pretty much in agreement with the drink in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. Gonna obviously all of the ingredients in our shaker. Shake them up. All right, and then strain that into our coupe glass. Look at that. I mean, and that's the color you want on a margarita, which makes sense. This is a clear spirit. All right, I will be washing out my shaker between drinks just to make sure that I'm not carrying over any flavors between the two. But all right, Rum-a-Rita number 1, the cachaça variant. I mean, you smell the cachaça on the nose. Oh, ooh, oh, no, wait, what? Ooh. Okay. There's a clash in there somewhere. What is clashing? Oh my god, hold on. Ooh. Oh, that does not bode well. Okay, interesting. We have a curveball right off the bat. I think there's something in the funk of the cachaça that is not playing well with the dry curacao. I think, wow, I cannot put my finger on it. So the front side of it is very nice. The front side of it is pretty much everything you'd expect. It's, you know, that nice tartness from the lime. It's very cool, sort of refreshing. Again, like the grassiness and the funk is there on the initial intake. But then, yeah, as the drink sort of evolves into its second gear, you know, as it makes its way into the back of the throat, there's some sort of clash of flavors back there that is not good. It's still certainly drinkable. I don't think this is like send it back to the kitchen or something, but it's definitely enough to raise an eyebrow. Like, you'd be sipping this and you'd be like, what did you do to my drink? Why did you voluntarily give me this? Why did I pay you money for this? All right, I thought this was going to be basically like 3 good cocktails and then 2 bad ones, but we may have more interesting drinks than I initially thought of. All right, the shaker's been cleaned, and that means we are on to Rum-a-Rita number 2 with the white rum. We've got some rain moving in right now, so hopefully that doesn't fuck up the lighting too bad. One of these days I'm gonna get some actual, like, proper studio lights so that I don't have to rely on nice weather and natural light to film in, but you know what, the stretch goals. We'll get there eventually. Trust me, you do not want to see what this setup actually looks like behind the scenes. Same thing, 2 ounces of our white rum, 3/4 of an ounce of our dry curacao, 3/4 of an ounce of our lime juice. This is why I prepared a whole glass of lime juice, because I knew I was going to be burning through it when I made these. And then 1/4 ounce of our simple syrup. And then we're going to shake this one up as well. All right. There we go. Strain that one into a coupe glass, just like the previous ones. And already you can see it's a little bit lighter than the cachaça one, it looks like. Or maybe that's just my imagination. Let's see. Look at these two. It's pretty similar. I think, actually, I don't think it's lighter. I think it's clearer than the cachaça one, which makes sense. That's a little bit of cloudy liqueur, whereas this white rum's quite clear. Obviously, no funk on this one, right? That white rum is sort of very clear, very mild in flavor, doesn't have those same grassy notes that the cachaça has, so you're not smelling any of that. You're just smelling straight lime pretty much. Oh yeah, that's just good. That is perfectly inoffensive. It is limey. Actually, the dry curacao comes through a lot more on this one, so I think that does back up my theory that it was some sort of clash with that orange note. For some reason, that orange note was not playing nicely with the cachaça, but here, with the much more sort of passive white rum, goes over far better. Yep. Limey, orangey. White rum's really not doing anything because it doesn't set out to do anything. It says, hey, I'm gonna be your alcohol in this drink. I'm gonna get you, you know, where you need to go, but I'm not gonna put any sort of stank on it. And you know what? That's what it's doing. All right, so ranking-wise, that's certainly gonna be better than the cachaça one, but gonna go rinse the shaker out again, and then we'll move on to the aged rum, which is gonna be interesting and hopefully better than the white rum, but only one way to find out. All right, clean shaker tin with a fresh ice cube. This is our 5-year Plantaray Rum-a-Rita. I'm trying to move quickly here because we have some very ominous clouds rolling in that are, like I said, fucking up my lighting.
You threw off my groove.
But we still got to get through our Rum-a-Ritas. The show must go on, as they say. Honestly, like even just like those first 2 that I've gone through now, I am starting to feel it a little bit. I had some coffee before this as well, so that's probably playing a role. Got like a nice little espresso martini effect going on in my system right now. So I don't know how I'm going to be after the end of all 5 of these. Because God knows I'm not letting these go to waste. You know, I will be finishing all 5 of these, just not on camera. So that'll be fun. This one's going to be interesting because I think this one is going to come out looking way more orange than our other 2. I think this might be the fucking gritty margarita. We'll see. That was maybe should have added a little bit more simple syrup, but we'll see. 1/4 ounce is such an annoying amount to measure for, but could be worse. All right. There we go. Ooh, certainly smells different. Fetch our coupe glass. I love these coupes. I will not tell you the name of the company that makes them, though, because I want sponsorships, please. All right. Like I predicted, it is noticeably more, well, not really more orange, but more yellow, certainly. I guess it's technically orange. It is, like, that is a distinct visual difference between them, though. Let's see. Not much of a nose difference between this and the white rum. Mostly just, well, no, it's slightly different. There's less of the lime coming through, which is interesting. Let's see. Oh, that's good. Oh yeah, that's the instant favorite right there. Woo! A lot more mellow than the previous 2. Previous 2 both had a sort of sharpness to them. This one, way more mellow. Some sort of, is it caramel? Oh no, it's not caramel. It's almost, oh that's weird, hold on. It's almost doing like a chocolate orange type thing. Not because I think there's really like a chocolate note in this rum. Let's see, do they call one out? No, bourbon vanilla, but I think it's because you're getting that sort of sweetness and those baking fruit notes from the rum. I think your brain, or at least my brain, when it tastes those with that orange flavor from the dry curacao, is sort of like, this is like an extra sweet orange. What extra sweet oranges are those? Oh, chocolate covered. That's what that is. That's an interesting little bit of trickery that is playing on my mind. But yeah, so far this is the ranking. It's bing bong bong. You know, this is probably, let's see. That's like an 8 out of 10 probably, I'd say. Obviously it could be better. You could have more interesting notes to it, but it's doing nothing wrong and it's really sort of hitting the boxes I want. I think this is probably like a 6.5, 7-ish out of 10. It's perfectly serviceable, but there's just really nothing special about it. It is just kind of like what you get on the tin. And then, yeah, this is like a 3 or a 4. Good up front, interesting idea, just bad finish. But all right, now, oh, which one do we do first? Let's do the black rum first. All right. I'm gonna give my shaker a rinse, and then we are going to do our Gosling's Black Seal Black Rum-a-Rita. All right, Rum-a-Rita number 4, and while I certainly expect this one to be a different color, obviously, I actually don't think this one is going to be bad per se. I think it'll probably be over sweet, and it might have a few slightly off flavors in it, but I don't think this is going to be a bad drink. I think there's too many sort of tiki drinks and other sort of maritime drinks that use black rum, especially Gosling's. This is, in my opinion, this is the best of the black rums. I think there's too many drinks that use it with sort of similar, flavors to what we have in this Rum-a-Rita. for it to truly register as a bad drink. This is also, unsurprisingly, the longest video that I've shot so far. So this one's going to be really fun to edit. Rip to future Connor when he has to go through the, like, hour of raw footage. Obviously, this will probably also be one of the longer drink segments, so that is why I have the chapters included in the videos, so that if you don't like the drinks and you're just here to see what the simulations say, then you can sort of easily skip ahead. Fucks with the retention and the watch rate, but analytics be damned. I'm here to make cool shit. All right, we're going to move you very carefully and very gently off to the side. Shake it up. All right. Oop. There we go. That one did not want to release. Woo. Oh my god, it looks like piss. Hold on. Is it gonna still look like piss? Ew! Oh. Oh no, it looks worse than piss. Oh my, oh, well, okay, hold on. I think we may be having a beauty is in the eye of the beholder moment right here. I personally think that looks kind of hideous, but objectively, that is just like a really deep caramel color. So it's not actually ugly, but I don't know. I'm just biased, I guess. Far less of a nose than I was expecting. I kind of thought I'd be getting like more, because Gosling's black rum, like, it definitely has some, like, extra spice added to it. I thought I'd be getting some of that on the nose, but there's just nothing. Huh. Oh, yeah. Wait. That one's kind of, okay, that ends up, yeah. That ends up being pretty similar, actually, to the cachaça one, but in the, like, they achieve the same effect, just from two very different places. We once again have a situation where the late arriving notes coming off this rum are in conflict with those late arriving sort of orange notes coming from the Curacao, and it's just not good. But again, the start of it's very nice. Like, the start of it's a bit sweet, you know? You have the flavors playing like they normally do. And then, yeah, once it hits the back of your throat and it really starts sort of aerating a little bit, right? Like, all the water has sort of gone off and now it's just the alcohol vapor sort of evaporating back there. It just, like, it's something bad. It's something awful cooked up in there. Okay, so these two are the failures. And then these two are respectable, upstanding citizens. I don't know why I'm going in for another sip, but I'm going to go in for another sip. Yeah, don't do this. You could do this. Don't make this. There's no reason for you to. There's nothing here. It's totally fine initially, and then just not particularly good on the finish. It's a little bit better than I think it's a little bit better than the cachaça one. Let me double back. Ugh. Yep. Oh, God. How is that? That's so good initially. It does everything you want initially. And then those late arriving flavors hit in the second wave. And it's like the boss's health bar, like, went back up and he just, like, annihilated you. Oh, okay. This is a little bit better. This is like a 3 or a 4. I'll put this at a hard 4. And then this at like a 4.5, 5, somewhere in there. God, these are just like piss samples. Okay. Oh no, why did I leave this one for last? Okay, well, I'm gonna clean my shaker, and then we are going to do the overproof Rum-a-Rita, number 5, close it out. All right, last one. And the sun is peeking back out from behind the clouds again, so I guess y'all get to watch me perish in the daylight this time. I'm not stalling, but I do want to say, before I get into this, this OFTD rum, this overproof rum, despite the high percentage on it, despite it being 69%, it is not ever clear. This is not just like pure ethanol. This is an actual rum with actual flavors. They've got tasting notes on the back of it. Like, this is something that I have had just neat before. Now, I had it neat mostly just to try it and to figure out what the flavors were coming off of it. But this is not just like a, pure ethanol, shoot you in the face type of thing. This is actually good. That being said, this is going to shoot me in the face. Because if I was an intelligent person or actually trying to create good cocktails, what I would do is I would not use a full 2-ounce pour of 69% ABV rum in this drink. But I'm not a normal person. I'm a fucking YouTuber. And that means I'm going to stick to the spec, and we are going to use 2 ounces of this OFTD rum in our final ultimate Rum-a-Rita. Oh God, I'm fucked. In that goes. In goes our dry curacao. A little bit of a heavy pour of that, but I'm sure it'll be fine. That's what this drink needed, right? It needed more alcohol in it. It needed a heavier pour of our dry curacao. Go lime juice. And finally, the simple syrup. There we go. I made a heavy pour of simple syrup to make up for it. So I at least have some sugar to help the medicine go down. All right, and now with this one, I am really running out of space here. You are going to move very carefully over there because, again, I do not want to spill any of you. I value my alcohols. We're using a very nice rocks glass that I have instead of a coupe because I only have 4 coupes. But honestly, this feels fitting because, like, this drink should be in its own special vessel, all right? This drink should not be among the rest of the 40% normal spirits. This drink is something else. All right, let's shake it up. All right, Curse of Raw. I love how I'm sniffing this thing like I'm a fucking rat and it's like poison. I mean, it might as well be, but... Alrighty. So that is it. Like the pieces of fucking Exodia, I have assembled the 5 Rum-a-Ritas.
Exodia! Obliterate!
Let's try the OFTD overproof 69% Rum-a-Rita. No, you gotta be fucking with me, right? There's no way. There's no way. Okay. Is it too strong? Yes. Like, that should have been probably an ounce and a half. An ounce and a half would have objectively been the correct amount of OFTD to put in that drink. But here, if we're making our little tier list of them, right? You know what? No, fuck it. You get to stay down there. Y'all are dog shit. It's the best drink. And it's not even particularly close. It's, oh my God, there's no way, right? Yeah, because I mean, okay, so here's the thing. So, the OFTD, obviously, it's got a lot of alcohol burn to it because it's such a high percentage. And that's not really a flavor note in of itself. That is more like a mouth experience that you have. Huh? Mouth experience is my Grindr profile name. but it's not a flavor note in of itself. But there is a lot of sort of different spices and spiced notes that you get along with that extra kick of alcohol. Because like I said, in that little totally not stalling session before I mixed this one, that is a very good rum. And there's a lot of very good flavor notes in that rum. And it's got the most character out of all of them. So when you mix it into a Rum-a-Rita, it actually stands up really well and brings a lot of really interesting spices to the mix. And I cannot believe that this one, which I thought was going to be dog shit, is actually the best fucking drink of them all. Yeah, like, oh. Okay. Like I said earlier, like the ratios are a little bit off with that one. It is a bit too strong. And like in its current iteration, like if I were to go to a bar and order a drink, I think I would probably rather have the 5-year, just because, again, with the current ratio, this is a bit more drinkable. Like this is, like that's perfectly smooth and balanced and does everything you want it to do. Like I said, that was an 8 out of 10. Like in its current iteration, I think this one is technically like a 7.5 and this is an 8 and it's technically better. But it's like the difference of going to see, like, you know, whatever the latest superhero movie is versus like seeing, you know, like an OG Wes Anderson movie for the first time, or seeing like some really weird like A24 movie for the first time. Like, is it just like pure enjoyment level as good as like your totally mainstream advertisable, you know, like mega blockbuster? No, it's probably not, right? It's going to challenge you a little bit. But is it so much more interesting, and is there so much more there to work with? Yes. And I cannot oh my God. I thought that was going to be dog shit. You're watching me have the meltdown right now. I don't know if this whole thing is going to be kept in the edit, but like I literally cannot fathom that the one out, like, I thought the cachaça was going to work great. Like, I thought this one was going to be bad, and it kind of was bad. But, like, I thought the cachaça was going to work great. And this OFTD rum was going to be absolute dog shit. And it's the exact opposite. The cachaça fucking let me down. The cachaça betrayed my trust, betrayed my family. And then the OFTD came in like fucking Superman and was like, I got you, dog. Oh my God. Okay, well, this has actually been great. I thought this was going to be basically just kind of like a content play of just like, I guess I'm making 5 drinks because I've got 5 different types of rum, and maybe people like to watch that. But this has actually like taught me a lot about rum. This has been fucking eye-opening. So yeah, I know this was a longer drink section, but I hope you enjoyed. And with all of our drinks assembled, it is now time for us to finally get into the simulation.
Alright, that was a lot of drinking, but we're here in the simulation now, and the Texans start off with the ball. Now, a recurring theme in this game is going to be QB runs, which I know we've established as a Madden staple, but this game just turned it up to 11. CJ Stroud got things started with a 20-yard scramble on the second play of the game, and on the very next play, little play action, nothing downfield, takes off and tacks on a 24-yard scramble, putting up more rushing yards in 2 plays than he did in any game last season. This initial drive for the Texans stalls out at the 24-yard line, but Fairbairn hits the field goal to put the Texans on the board first. Now, Baker seems to have seen Stroud's scrambles and gotten the zoomies, as he takes off on this 2nd and inches for an 18-yard rush. The very next play is a QB read, which Baker keeps, covering the 10 yards between him and the end zone, capping off the touchdown run by turning into Superman. Speaking of Supermen, on the Texans' ensuing possession, ageless wonder Levante David picks off Stroud on this throw over the middle, giving the Bucs the ball back with great field position. And you know, after Baker had so much success running the ball on the first drive, why not just do it again? A 34-yard rushing touchdown for Baker, just sprinting up the middle of the field, leaving all the defenders standing around slack-jawed. Interception aside, the Texans were moving the ball pretty well so far in this game, but just couldn't find the end zone. as the Bucs get a huge third down sack on this safety blitz to force another Texans field goal. Meanwhile, on the other side of the field, the Buccaneers' 2-minute drill ends with a third Baker rushing touchdown, putting the Bucs up 21-6 at the half. In the second half, however, the Texans strike first, as the rookie Jaden Higgins is left wide open and beats the safety to the end zone for a 58-yard touchdown. But even this doesn't go perfectly for the Texans, as the Bucs block the extra point, keeping this a 2-score game. On the ensuing possession for the Buccaneers, Baker tries to add a fourth rushing touchdown, but is brought down just short at the 1-yard line. From there, he finally decides to share some of the wealth, handing it off to Bucky Irving for the touchdown. On the 2-point conversion, Baker finds Bucky in the flat, but he's stopped just shy of the end zone, leaving the score at 21-12. On the very first play of the fourth quarter, Stroud slings this 39-yard touchdown to Nico Collins in the back of the end zone, cutting Tampa's lead to 2. Baker continues to take every opportunity to run, adding a 14-yard run down to Houston's 15-yard line, and then immediately following that up with a 9-yard run, where Azeez Al-Shaair saves this from becoming his 4th rushing touchdown. On third down, Derek Stingley breaks up this pass intended for Mike Evans. Bucs kick the field goal to push it back to a 2-score game. The Texans' following 2-minute drive ends in a CJ Stroud running touchdown, putting them back within striking distance. However, the 2-point conversion to Christian Kirk falls short, leaving the deficit at 5. With only 55 seconds left and 2 timeouts, the Texans go for the onside kick, but the Bucs recover it easily. A few plays later, Bucky Irving picks up the first down, letting Tampa kneel out the rest of the clock and close out this game with a 30-25 victory. This is a great example of one of those games where the final score makes it seem way closer than the game actually felt. The Texans were just in such a hole early on, though they did do a good job at pulling themselves out of it, but fell well short of the win. Looking at the QB stats, I think 159 yards might actually be the lowest passing yardage total we've seen so far in Madden Sim, but it's not unrealistic for Baker, as he had 2 games last season that were similar. 265 yards is a slightly above average performance for CJ, but honestly pretty on the money there. Now we get to the rushing stats, and yeah, this is just crazy. Starting off with the running back slander, both of these guys got done so dirty. Bucky Irving only had 1 NFL game where he averaged less than 2.5 yards per carry, and that was a game where he only had 4 carries. Sure, he's had games with fewer yards, but the lowest yardage he's had in a game with at least 15 carries is 68 yards, basically twice what he put up in this game. Similar story with Nick Chubb. Like, I know his glory days are most likely behind him, but 13 yards is disrespectful. The cause of these numbers is obvious. The goddamn QBs ate up all the rushing yards in this one. Starting with Stroud, 75 yards and a touchdown on 6 carries would be his career best, but it's at least still within the realm of possibility. Last season, he went for 59 yards on 8 carries against the Jets. Baker's rushing performance was straight fiction. It is difficult for me to fully express how unbelievable this stat line would be, but I must try. 142 rushing yards would put Baker in the top 10 for single-game quarterback rushing performances, along the likes of Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, and Mike Vick. Also of note is that none of those top 10 rushing performances put up more than 2 rushing touchdowns, so this has a legitimate case as one of the best QB rushing performances of all time. However, what makes it even more incredible is the fact that it's Baker fucking Mayfield putting it on. Now, to be fair, Baker does have some wheels. Last season, in fact, was his best season so far from a rushing perspective. Still, prior to last season, his single season rushing record for rushing yards was 165. His best rushing game from last year hit only 68 yards, which he more than doubled in this one. Also, he had only 3 rushing touchdowns in the entire season last year. I don't know what snapped in the Madden AI for this game, but it decided Baker was gonna fucking go off, and honestly, I love it for him. Now for the Texans, whose quarterback actually threw the ball this game. The receiving stats actually look pretty reasonable. 80 yards is about the average for Nico Collins, and it's not crazy to imagine that Jaden Higgins could break a big reception for a touchdown. The Buccaneers is where things just kind of get sad for the receivers, and nobody is sadder than Mike Evans, whose 2 catches for 16 yards is eerily reminiscent of the Broncos game from last season, where Baker only threw for a comparable 163 yards. For a spot of sanity, we look to the Monte Carlo stats, which gives Baker more passing yards and about 1/10 of the rushing yards. Additionally, we see some much needed running back love, with Bucky putting up a very nice 72 rushing yards, and Nick Chubb and rookie Woody Marks splitting carries in the Texans' backfield. On the Buccaneers side, we see Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka have much better games, each putting up 40-something yards. Finally, the most common Monte Carlo score is again a 14-14 tie, however very close behind it is a 21-14 Buccaneers victory. Now, obviously, the Monte Carlo sim tends to depress teams' offensive outputs, so the overall scores are lower than one would expect, but the margin of victory can still be quite telling. In this case, the average margin of victory from the simulation roughly agrees with the Madden simulation, as it foresees a 19-15 Tampa Bay victory. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the Rum-a-Rita, which I made 5 of with varying levels of quality. If you decide to make it, please let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.